Chapter 14. Scarlet was so happy about all the wish energy she had collected that she didn't even mind giving Ophelia a ride back home on her star. Scarlet hadn't planned on holding Ophelia's hand the whole time, but somehow it turned out that way, and they were still holding hands when Lady Stella's door opened to welcome the returning starlings in. Maybe that was why every jaw in the room seemed to drop. Or maybe it was Scarlet's smile, which she couldn't hold back, and for once didn't even try to. Scarlet! Lady Stella walked forward, her stardust-flecked silver robe flowing behind her in a shimmering diaphanous cloud. I owe you star salutations, and more importantly, star apologies. She stood before Scarlet and humbly bowed. Clearly you always were, and always will be, meant to be a star darling. If there was any doubt whatsoever left, this resolves it once and for all. With that, the headmistress extended her arm. In her upturned palm was the Wish Orb, which she handed to Scarlet. It felt heavy and warm, and then began to transform into a flower. "It's a punky pow," said Scarlet with a smile. The burgundy star-shaped petals were aglow. And then her power crystal, the Ravenstone, emerged. It was so beautiful and made Scarlet feel very special indeed. "Take it, and hold it, dear," said Lady Stella. "Oh, I will, said Scarlet. Her own heart seemed to stop as she received the gem and felt the pulse of its energy through her hands. Meanwhile, Lady Stella, still smiling, but more sadly, turned to Ophelia. As she spoke, she shook her head. "To you, Ophelia, I must also offer star apologies. It is clear you are not a star darling, as we had believed." Scarlet looked down. She remembered how those words had crushed her, and she could only imagine they'd wound Ophelia the same way. When Scarlet finally made herself look at the starling, however, the words seemed instead to have lifted a great weight off Ophelia. Her whole aura had changed. Not only was she brighter and more sparkly, she looked almost happy, content, and relieved. Her eyes skipped from Lady Stella to Scarlet, then around to each of the dumbstruck star darlings, who hadn't moved since the two starlings had glided in. "What the stars? Who's next?" Gemma suddenly blurted. "Starf! Hey!" she cried, as Tessa elbowed her ribs. Lady Stella clasped her now empty hands tightly in front of her, as if in prayer. "I know this is quite a lot for you to take in, particularly on such an intensely emotional day. We've all been through quite a lot. Especially, of course, Scarlet and Ophelia. Which is why I think it's best to retire for now. Rest assured that Lady Cordial and I will work diligently to ensure that nothing like this happens again." She turned her head respectfully toward the admissions director, who'd stood off to the side in semi-shadow throughout the whole Wish Blossom presentation. Lady Cordial took a step forward and bowed to the headmistress. Her deep purple bun looked especially tight. "We most certainly will," she said, her eyes still on the floor. "No mistakes like this. Ever again." As fast as Scarlet had fled from the other star darlings when she'd learned she'd been dismissed from the group, she fled even faster now that she was back in. She could see everyone waiting to congratulate her and embrace her. Outside Lady Stella's office, and suddenly it all seemed too much for her to bear. She would deal with them all later, be sociable, Scarlet thought, as she rushed past them. But right then, more than anything, she needed to be by herself. She'd already hugged and held hands more in one day than she had in the whole rest of her time at Starling Academy. She was overwhelmed. She needed to breathe. The holotext came as she was descending the spiral staircase into the star caves. "Where did you go?" it flashed, as Vega's picture appeared in the upper corner of the screen. Scarlet almost didn't answer, but then another line came through. And another after that. "We have to talk. You were right, and so was Cassie. The lab results came in while you were gone." "And?" Scarlet waited. Well, she thought, what had they found out? Finally, she texted back. "What did they say?" She realized she was holding her breath as she stared at her stars app, waiting for Vega's reply. At last, the screen flashed again, this time with both Cassie's and Vega's faces, one in each corner. Cassie's picture coyly winked. "Here's a hint. Isle of Mizera. For more, meet us in the hedge maze. ASAP." So as fast as possible, Scarlet spun and ran back up the stairs. The Isle of Mizera? That sad, barren, negative energy dumping ground? Could it be that the Star Darling's flowers had come from there?